Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time we left off with the German reprisal raid on Canterbury. We're now on to a more famous battle of the Second World War. The Battle of Midway Island, June 3rd to 7th, 1942. And just so you know, I'm going to keep it on the picture while I say it, because the text is a little, it's a little long. Aircraft carrier Yorktown goes down. On June 3rd, two large Japanese fleets approached Midway Island, U.S. naval and air base in the Pacific. As soon as the enemy's presence was reported, a strong force of Army bombers set out to locate the Japanese fleet, and in an attack that followed, direct hits were scored on 8 enemy ships. Meanwhile, a force of about 180 Japanese carrier-borne planes raided the airfields, docks, and harbor installations on the island, but succeeded in inflicting only minor damage. The strength of the U.S. attack forced the enemy to withdraw with tremendous losses, the greatest sustained by the enemy since the war began, amounting to 4 aircraft carriers, 2 battleships damaged, 2 heavy cruisers sunk, and 3 damaged. What? Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, I understand. I was misreading that for a second. It says, so it's 2 heavy cruisers sunk and 3 heavy cruisers damaged. That's what it means there. 1 light cruiser damaged and 3 destroyers sunk. U.S. losses amounted to 1 aircraft carrier, the Yorktown, which is shown above. So this picture in here is the Yorktown, and the destroyer Hammond. Military strategists later interpreted the attack on Midway as a preliminary thrust, the ultimate objective of which was the Hawaiian Islands, and the complete neutralization of the base at Pearl Harbor. The complete defeat of the Japanese fleet was the stroke that equalized the strength of American and Japanese navies, and permitted the latter to drop the defensive role imposed upon it since the outbreak of hostilities. Like the Battle of the Coral Sea, the engagement at Midway was unique in naval history, in that there was no exchange of fire between the big guns of the opposing fleets. At all times, at least 200 miles of Pacific Ocean separated the opponents. All damage was scored by bomber and torpedo planes, flown from carriers, with the Americans having additional help of land-based bombers. Yeah, so this is basically the crippling blow to the Japanese fleet. The Japanese, it's over. This is the beginning of the end. This is literally the beginning of the end. It's over. They have all this land still, and there will be many battles, but this fight right here, the Battle of Midway, that's it. If they didn't lose this, the Japanese would have fought a lot longer, and yes, they still would have lost, but there would have been a lot more back and forth. And potentially they would have been able to keep some of the stuff that they had taken. Potentially. Maybe not, but potentially. Whereas this, no, this is it. This is it. This is their main fleet, and it's just wiped out. Yeah, some of it survived, of course, but a lot of it's gone. It was heavily damaged, and the Japanese Navy will never recover from this. Enemy action and a loss in the Battle of Midway, June 3rd to 7th, 1942. Attack from the air. Japanese planes in the Battle of Midway attempt to attack the Pacific Fleet forces through heavy anti-aircraft fire. Smoke on the horizon is from an enemy bomber shot down. So, okay, but there's a lot of smoke. So which one does it mean? Does it mean this one? Does it mean this one? Does it mean this one? Splashes in the foreground are caused by falling shrapnel. This battle, described by many as the greatest sea engagement since Jutland of World War I, practically ensured the safety of the American West Coast. Yeah, it does. there is no threat. There basically is no threat anymore. Yes, the Japanese do have some things that could still yeah, but yeah, there's nothing. The enemy loses a cruiser. A Japanese heavy cruiser of the Mogami class after she was hit by U.S. bombs and left in sinking condition. The Battle of Midway, lasting more than 3 days and nights, was such a complex and widespread action that even the active participants of the United States forces were unable to sum up thoroughly all the damage inflicted on the enemy. But it is known that approximately 4,800 Japanese killed or drowned, and that the total losses of the United States forces were 92 officers and 215 enlisted men. In tonnage, the Japanese at Midway lost more than the Germans lost in the classic Battle of Jutland. Almost without exception, these losses could have been attributed to ship-based United States Navy aircraft. The Battle of Midway climaxed the first 6 months of the United States at war and marked the opening of a new phase of operations in the Pacific. The enemy offensive had been checked. Yeah, the Japanese have no more offensive capability. Not really. Yes, they do have some, but not really like they did. The first air attack on North America, June 3rd, 1942. Dutch Harbor raided. On the morning of June 3rd, Japanese planes raided U.S. naval and air base at Dutch Harbor, Unalaska in the Aleutians. High explosives and incendiary bombs were dropped, but damage was light. A few barracks and warehouses at Fort Mears and Dutch Harbor were bombed and set afire, and a Navy patrol plane, which was about to take off with mail, was strafed. The picture shows bombs dropping harmlessly in the bay. The ship in the background staved off the enemy attack with machine gun fire, dropping. In the harbor at the time of the attack were 3 United States destroyers, an Army transport, a minesweeper, and a Coast Guard cutter, and also an old station ship. The Northwestern, which had been beached and was being used as barracks, this ship was destroyed in the second attack on June 4th. Yeah, so we can see right there the Japanese bombs falling harmlessly. Yeah, the Japanese will invade part of the Aleutian Islands, and they take some stuff, and it's considered a victory, but it's really nothing. It is a small victory. One of those, it's a Pyrrhic victory, really. Because, yes, having part of the United States, I guess, invaded is a big deal, but it doesn't really lead to anything. You know what I mean? It doesn't lead to anything. So it's kind of like it's a win, but it's a not that important win. Sorry about that. My nose is itching. Mobile defense against Allied bombs. June 1942. I'll show that. Daylight raids on the enemy. During June, daylight attacks of increasing force were made by British and American bombers on industrial targets in Germany and the occupied countries. Early in June, nearly 100 bombers of the RAF made a concentrated attack on the Philips Radio Works at Eindhoven in Holland. This factory, the largest of its kind in Europe, was entirely engaged on production for the German armed forces. Large sections of the works were destroyed by fire. Another great raid was made on the steel works at Lille by Flying Fortress. Over 150 tons of high explosives and a great weight of incendiaries were dropped on the main buildings within a few minutes, and fierce fires were seen spreading over the whole area as the attackers flew away. Above, a German flak train used as an additional means of defense against the Allied air attacks over the Reich and occupied countries. Yeah, so this is like one of the final eras of what we would think of as train guns. Most wars after this don't have them, but that is also because most countries that are fought in after this don't really have trains. So, but yeah, train guns were used quite often, and it's smart. A train it can always be moving. It goes through important areas of the country usually. It can hold a lot of weight, so you can have a big gun with a lot of ammunition. So it makes sense to have these, and you could always have them patrolling around. Not a bad idea. That's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I can improve on. I always appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.